Welcome to Unleash the Awesome with Dave Gambrill. All of us have unique skills, talents, and abilities that aren't being used to their full potential. Our mission is to share the people, tools, apps, and other resources that will help you unleash your awesome on the world.
Yo, what's up? It's Dave. Welcome to another episode of Unleash the Awesome. Today, let's talk about how to create your own Independence Day. That's right, how to create your own Independence Day. Many people that I know when I was working in corporate America, even though I worked in some really good gigs, I worked in professional sports and entertainment, got to meet lots of celebrities and athletes, go to a lot of concerts and events, see behind the scenes of like WWE wrestling, all kinds of fun stuff like that. I had a job where I sold drugs out of the back of my car legally for a pharmaceutical company. And that job, the hours, this is a, people always say this about this industry, but it was true for me. The work hours were not that involved. It was, I'm not going to say it was from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day, but it was pretty close because I called on doctors and pharmacists and other prescribers and healthcare professionals in the area that I grew up in and that I live in. So I didn't have to go far to get to these offices and do the things I needed to do. And I was good at that. And I won some awards, went on some trips and all that. And I'm saying all this to say that even on top of all of that, I still knew that that wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. And I was still frustrated with having to work and play within the confines of somebody else's rules and timeframes. Like I could only go on vacation on certain days and that had to get approved. And I had to go on certain work trips when I didn't want to go and leave my family and all this stuff, right? So even though those are really awesome and I made some good money and had some freedom, flexibility and stuff like that, there's still a frustration level. And I know there's plenty of people who are working a 9-to-5 job that they don't like and they get frustrated and they just resign themselves to the fact that like this is what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. And it's sad. You can see the quiet desperation in their eyes when they peek their head up out of the cubicle to go to the bathroom or go get some water or coffee or something. You could just see the dejected look on some people's faces. And I would often recommend a book, the book I'm going to recommend to you today, and you've probably heard me recommend, if you've listened to this podcast at all, at least 20 times. It's a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Yes, crazy title. Yes, plenty of people have told me they didn't initially get it because of the title. And then when they did, they were so mad that they waited to get it. I'll put the link to it in the show notes so you can grab it on Amazon if you want. I happened to get it the year it came out in 2007. So I have like an original version, which has some even crazier stuff in it. But the new and revised version is awesome. Still has all the information that you need in there. And what it will help you think through is how, if you want to, how to create your own Independence Day. Because the reason why most people are living a life of quiet desperation is because they're tied to the money that comes from their job. Or they're tied to that money because they've overextended on their mortgage and they have college loans to pay back and they have all these other obligations that they can't make good on unless they're making this money. So they feel stuck, like they have to do this thing they don't love because they got to make the money to pay the bills, right? I totally get that. And it seems like there's no way out. But friends, there has never been a better time in the history of the world for you to figure out how to monetize some expertise and get it online in the form of a side hustle, right? But before we get to all of that, if you get the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, there's a couple exercises in the first few chapters where he basically talks about, okay, what are your current financial obligations? What's your current situation? How much are you making? And then how much would it take to set you free from that? Like, how much do you really have to make? And you'll have to ask yourself some tough questions like, do you really have to live where you currently live? Like some people live where they live simply because there was an opportunity for a job there, but they don't even like living there. Maybe they want to go live at the beach or something and they feel like they're stuck. But now with remote jobs and things like that, you could live not only anywhere in the United States, but you could live anywhere in the world in a lot of cases. But you have to go through these exercises and plan. This is not something that will happen accidentally to like 99% of people. Somebody might stumble into this, but for most people, you have to plan your work and then work your plan. So if you get this book and you go through these exercises and you figure out, okay, here's how much I currently make, here's what what my debt obligations are, whatever, here's what I have to figure out. And then he has some exercises in there that have you look at what you think your value is per hour, not what you make per hour, but what you think your current value is, because then he starts teaching, this is the key, listen, he starts to teach you some ways to maybe outsource or automate some of the things you're doing in your job to then free up some time to pursue your side hustle. Listen, I'm not saying, don't mishear this, don't misquote this, don't say Dave said this. I'm not saying grow your side hustle and build your business on company hours, right? Be a good employee, do everything you need to stay off the radar, right? Deliver, do the things you need to do. However, there are probably some things you do after hours. There are probably some projects and stuff that you get stuck doing, or there are probably some projects that you do that are just like these menial tasks. And if you learn how to take a step back and look at it for a second and look at all the tools and all the resources that are available to us, you can probably automate a fair amount of it. So at least when you get home later, or maybe you're on lunch break or something, you could take your full lunch break and you could spend that time thinking about your side hustle, strategizing for your exit strategy, thinking about the tactics and things you need, reading another few chapters of the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. You can spend some time doing that. But what happens to most people is they get mired in their work. They don't think about automating it or even outsourcing it. Perhaps, I'll tell you a funny story about that in a second. So then they're tired and they're exhausted and they get home and they just don't feel like they have any energy to devote to building their side hustle, getting a course or a membership group or something online, growing their photography business. Maybe even, I talk a lot about growing digital products and digital businesses, but maybe you're looking to invest in some real estate and you want to buy perhaps a duplex and live in one half and rent out the other half to bring in some more cash flow, maybe offset the cost of the mortgage for that house, whatever the case may be. Maybe you want to get buy into a business, a franchise or something. Whatever that is, you got to plan ahead and you got to figure out how to protect your energy, which is one of the biggest things that challenges people, right? They're working all day, they have a family, they got to go home, they got to make sure the family gets fed, they got to go grocery shopping, they got to do all these things. Maybe it's worth the $5 or $10 to pay for grocery delivery. Maybe it's worth paying somebody to mow your grass. Maybe it's worth paying somebody to do your laundry. All right. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's an expense. Like, how am I supposed to make money if I'm paying all this thing, right? That is an employee mindset, right? You're thinking like an employee. But if you start thinking like a business owner, which this book will help you do, then you start thinking, okay, if I don't this is what I thought about when it came to mowing the lawn, right? The property that we have has like a little over 2 acres. Almost all of it is grass and needs to be mowed. And I was like, okay, I could spend over 2 hours mowing it, because with a tractor that's for consumers, as fast as I could go on the tractor, it would take like 2 hours by the time everything's said and done. But with a commercial lawnmower that goes much faster, these guys come and do it literally in like 20 or 30 minutes. But I looked at it and I said, okay, and this guy's charging me like $50 to do it. And I said, well, I could spend the 2 hours mowing the lawn and getting tired and putting all that effort and energy and doing it and not pay the $50, right? But that would mean I'd have to buy a tractor, I'd have to buy the gas, I'd have to invest the time into doing it, I'd have to do all these things. Or I could just pay someone $50 a week to do it, and I could figure out a way to create something or monetize something online that makes at least $50. And what I ended up doing at the time was I was officiating boys lacrosse. And I was like, look, I just have to ref one lacrosse game and that offsets the fee for get my lawn done, right? So I started looking at where can I make these trade-offs. And like if I was gonna, you have to look holistically at your life and what you're trying to do. So in this case, I figured out, okay, if I'm running up and down the field doing lacrosse, I like lacrosse. Yes, it's outside. Yes, I might get tired from running around and exercising, but it is exercising. It was good for my health and my cardiovascular fitness, and I was getting paid, and I would rather do that than mow my lawn. So that was a trade-off I would make. I was like, well, if I just did one extra game a week, that would pay for doing the lawn, right? So you have to start looking at these things and say, okay, if this helps me get 2 hours back in my week or protect my energy or whatever the case may be, that gives me time to then dedicate to growing my side hustle, to maybe even, this sounds crazy, but in the short term, maybe this is what you need to do. Maybe you need to even pick up a part-time job. Maybe you can pick up a part-time job that you could do from home. Or maybe even if you had to go and do retail or something, or go help some. But if what you were looking to do requires some seed capital, like buying a property or investing in a franchise or something, then maybe you need to figure out a way to get like all your work done, so then you can allocate hours to this other thing. Or sometimes I call this a bridge job. People tell me, I don't have money to invest in this software, this tool or whatever. I'm like, well, then go get a job. They're like, what are you talking about? I already have a job. I'm like, well, I don't know, go do something on the weekends or whatever. And if you're going to do that, I'll save this for another episode, but at least going in depth on it. If you're going to go do that, I would advise that you do something that you're going to pick up a skill that you need for your side hustle. So like if you could go work in somebody's business that is growing something similar to what you want to do, to at least learn and see how they're doing it and see how they manage inventory or run the whatever, I would do that. Anyway, what you have to do though is figure out what your exit plan is, what your strategy is for your own Independence Day. And so when you figure out these hours to do these things, then you have to be disciplined enough, doesn't need to be totally rigid, but you need to be disciplined enough to then when you get those hours, when you free up that energy to actually doing the things you need to do in your business. So for me and a lot of the people that I coach, that revolves around creating an opt-in magnet or a lead magnet to help build your email list, right? And you have to do these things consistently over time. You could do baby steps, but it has to be baby steps consistently. Maybe you can only dedicate, maybe you freed up a couple hours a week or maybe a couple hours a day. Then I would spend probably, once you get going, once you figure out kind of what your strategy is, you don't have to spend a lot of time in manager mode. I would spend most time in maker mode. Creating stuff, creating content, creating opt-ins, things, sending emails to your list, doing some research. And even if you're trying to do some research on getting into a franchise or buying some properties or whatever, there are so many tools available that automate so much of it. And simple things like a lot of people, I'll just drop one for you here and I'll put a link to it in the show notes, although you should be able to find it. There's something called Google Alerts. So maybe you're interested in some properties or something where you live or a business or whatever, and like you just want to get some alerts on these things anytime they show up in the news. You can go to Google and set up these alerts where you get emailed stuff that happens automatically. So instead of you having to search the news every day or go do all this stuff can just get automatically delivered to you when it happens, when it occurs, when they find it out there in the world, when there's a news release about it or whatever, right? That's working smart, letting Google work for you. Maybe you have a commute to your job, or maybe you run a delivery route for your job and you're driving around all day. Listen to some podcasts, listen to some audiobooks, hell, listen to the 4-Hour Workweek. Use some of that time to teach you the skills and the things that you need to grow your side hustle, right? Use some of that time. You could get a $10 Bluetooth speaker to hang in your shower, and you could listen to 10 or 15 minutes of audiobooks and podcasts every day while you're getting ready in the morning. Right in the bathroom. You can listen to those podcasts and stuff when you're working out. You can listen to these podcasts and stuff when you're waiting to pick up your kid from soccer practice. Like finding ways to integrate your side hustle. Like when your side hustle or your business or your escape plan or your Independence Day becomes a priority to you, then you figure out ways to execute on it. Because I can already hear people talking back to me right now through the speaker, listening to this, like, Dave, I don't have time. I don't have the energy. That's why I'm telling you, go get this book. It helps you a lot with that. But there are ways, like Tony Robbins calls this NET, no extra time. How can you just integrate the stuff that you need, the learning, into what you're currently doing, and then start creating some stuff so you're ready to go? I'll give you an example. When I worked in pharmaceutical sales, I spent a fair amount of time in my car. So I listened to books on tape or CD at the time. It was before really the iPhone, and you could have a lot of content through Audible or podcasts or whatever. So I was listening to books on tape, books on CD, things like that while I was driving around. And then I spent a fair amount of time sitting in doctor's offices waiting to go back and see the doctor, sometimes up to an hour. It's usually like 15 or 20 minutes. So I could sit there and watch The View or The Price is Right or whatever's on the TV in the waiting room, or I could take out my Kindle and read a business book, read The 4 Hour Workweek, read whatever, right? I spent a fair amount of time driving to lacrosse games to officiate, listen to stuff there. Right? So all of these things, when your Independence Day, when your escape plan becomes a priority, you will figure out how to fit these things in. So then the rest of the 4 Hour Workweek gets into some stuff that the tactics are probably antiquated, but the strategies are still accurate. So some of the things he talks about are testing an idea. He talked about like listing something on Craigslist or eBay or something to test it and see if people are interested in it. And if you get some people that are interested in it or bid on it, or you get some feedback, then you know, right? Or you get some click-throughs on something. Like you could create something where you put a wait list page. So maybe you're not ready to launch it yet, but maybe you create some ads or some content out there to say, hey, there's this thing that's coming. If you want to be one of the first people to know about it, click here, and then they can enter their name and email address. And then you'll see like, okay, wait, people are interested in this, and you grow your list at the same time. And while that's happening, if you want, you can survey these people that opt in, because now you have their email address. And you can say, hey, I'm building this thing out right now, but I want it to be of the highest quality and serve you at the highest level. So help me answer some questions. One of them, my friend Ryan Levesque would have you ask. Ryan wrote Choose and Ask, and he has the Ask Method Masterclass and all that stuff. One of the questions I would ask is like, what is your single biggest challenge or problem or situation with X, whatever your niche is, however you're trying to serve people? What is your current biggest challenge around this, right? And have it open-ended so they can answer whatever. And then if you have some ideas on what you're going to deliver, you could have some multiple choice or pick one type things of like, you know, I'm thinking about doing courses or modules or whatever. Which of the following would you prefer? Whatever. But then you could start getting feedback from people before, listen to this. This is going to be probably a whole nother episode sometime, but this is a key takeaway. Before you create your course or your membership or whatever, you're getting some real feedback from real people on kind of what they're interested in. And that way you can create something that they actually want. So if you're doing all of these things, right? So you're still working your job, still taking your kids to soccer practice, you're still going to all their games, you're still doing whatever. Like even at their games, their soccer games, you could have one earbud in listening to a podcast or something, right? I did it all the time. I could still be very involved in watching the game, right? But instead of me sitting with the parents and, I don't know, talking about town gossip or whatever, like I would just stand further down the sidelines, concentrate on the game, right? Lots of times, especially in youth sports, there's not a lot of action going on. You have an earbud in, you're just listening to some podcast or whatever. So as you're doing all this stuff and you have this plan and your priority is your escape plan and you keep that top of mind, then all throughout the day, you'll find times to work in these things. And then when you get home, you're ready to execute. So you put the kids to bed, have dinner, put the kids to bed, whatever. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to stay up for a half hour or 45 minutes or an hour, and I'm going to create some content. And now with tools like Jasper AI, it is a copywriting artificial intelligence thing. I'll put that link in the show notes for you. You could come home with just kind of a half-baked idea or a concept and maybe wanted to write a blog post about it. And you're like, well, I just have some basic ideas, but it's not fully, I don't have it fully baked yet. But if you have some highlights, if you have kind of some topic sentences or some bullets or some headlines you might put in there, you can literally go in something like Jasper and type in, write a blog post about the following bullet points, blah, 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 and hit a button and it will write it out. And it'll be like 90% locked on. You might have to edit it a little bit. You can even ask it to write it in a specific tone of voice. So some of you are like, I don't have time to write blog posts. I don't have to do all this stuff. Listen, if you're using these tools, and again, this will be an investment. It costs some money to do it. But if you were thinking about all day long some of the blog posts you need to write or some of the YouTube scripts you need to create for your YouTube channel or content, whatever, when you get home, instead of wasting a lot of time staring at a blank page, you could just pop it in something like Jasper and it will give you some ideas, like, and then you go, oh, okay. And then instead of worrying about like having to create content for a whole other day or writing a script or whatever, now if you're doing a podcast or doing a YouTube video or whatever, a TikTok, instead of spending a whole hour thinking about that stuff, you spent like 10 minutes, and then you can spend the other 50 minutes you have left in that hour to dedicate that day to actually creating the content instead of staring at a blank page, right? So there's so many tools, so many systems, so many resources, so many assets available in the marketplace to help you do this stuff. You just have to stick around people who are doing what you want to do, right? You can't hang around like the people in your neighborhood or the people at your kid's soccer game or whatever and like try to brainstorm about this stuff because they're not going to get it. They're not. Don't waste your time. I did a whole episode of this podcast about don't ask blind people to proofread your vision. It will kill your thing. It'll kill your will. It'll kill your idea. It'll kill any chance you have at surviving and making that thing happen. All right, I'll put the link to that in the show notes for you. But don't ask people. Like, get around people. If you want to build courses and membership groups, check out my digital marketing mentorship group. If you want to invest in real estate or properties or whatever, get around people that do that. If you want to grow an Airbnb property, if you want to have a bunch of properties for that, for short-term rentals and Airbnb or whatever, check out my friend Bill Faith. I'll put a link to some of his stuff in the show notes. I'm not sure exactly the best place to connect with him, but he just did a whole conference on short-term rentals and how to be successful with them. And he's very successful and he knows lots of other successful people in the space. So I don't do that, but if I wanted to do that and got interested in doing that, I would go get around people that are already doing it. Right? So you get around these people, you get these tools, you get the ideas, and now we have all these other things, these tools and these artificial intelligence things or whatever for you to create this content even faster. If you wanted to, between using an artificial intelligence copywriting thing and spending your day going through some thoughts and ideas and maybe mapping them out in Trello, which is what I use, just free mostly. They have a freemium plan. I pay for whatever business level they have because it's worth it to me. But like you could spend your day mapping out some ideas for blog posts or chapters of a book. You could come home, you could use something like Jasper. You could type in, hey, help me write this blog post with these bullet things. And it goes, and then you spend just a few minutes cleaning it up. Or you could hire somebody on Fiverr. I'll put that in the show notes for you too. You could hire somebody on Fiverr or a virtual assistant or an editor somewhere to edit your blog posts. And if you use something like Trello to track those projects, you could just put that information in Trello. And like what I tend to do, if I'm going to work on a really big project and it's time specific, right? And I learned this from the 4-Hour Workweek, by the way, not this specific tactic, but this idea and the strategy, because this is a newer idea, but the tactic is similar, right? I will get a virtual assistant in the Philippines, and I'll put the service that I use for that in the show notes for you so you can access it. But the idea is, if I'm writing a book or I'm writing blog posts or I'm creating some content or whatever, and I just need somebody to edit it, or I just need somebody to edit it and post it to WordPress or Kajabi or whatever it is I'm using, or I need somebody to send out emails on my behalf, I will get a virtual assistant in the Philippines for a couple reasons. One, this service that I use is really good and reliable. But two, they tend to be awake when I'm asleep and vice versa. So like I can spend all day thinking about these things, thinking about these blog posts, maybe getting it going, maybe getting like the beginning or the end, maybe getting like the boundaries of a project figured out. And then I'll just drop it in Trello that my virtual assistant in the Philippines also has access to. They're on the board. Trello is just a project management tool. There's others out there like ClickUp or Monday or some other stuff, but I like Trello. It works well, and lots of people are familiar with it. So maybe I'll map out the idea in there, and then I'll send them a quick email before I go to bed, or even just in Trello, you can communicate, and I'll say, hey, this is what I want you to work on today. And the cool thing is I get all that information. I download it from my brain right before I go to sleep. I put it in Trello. I go to sleep. They're waking up in the Philippines because they're on the other side of the world. And then they start working on it. And then I wake up early enough in the morning that I might catch the tail end of their workday. And I might just circle up with them, sometimes live, sometimes on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever, but sometimes just in Trello. And I'll say, hey, what did you get? And they put the deliverables right there. And I go, hey, this is really good. Thank you. And then maybe I'll give them some coaching on it. Like, if I ask you to do this again, do it this way, or tweak this. Like, I love this, but to make it perfect, I would like this, that, or whatever. Might give them a little coaching. But then I take the content, the output that they gave me, and just, again, have to tweak it a little bit. And then I can put it out there to the world. Or maybe they already put it out to the world because I trust them enough, right? When you work with someone long enough to figure it out, right? So between all of these things, there are no excuses anymore about like, I don't have time or I can't figure it out. Because if you're planning your Independence Day, and now you know what the plan is, and that becomes a priority for you, and then you start employing some of these strategies and tactics, especially the ones you learn in the 4-Hour Workweek. What Tim talked about in the 4-Hour Workweek was using virtual assistants in India or the Philippines or whatever. Same concept, right? He was just having you outsource some other stuff. And this was the funny thing I was going to tell you from before. Even when I worked in corporate America, there were some projects that I worked on that I'm not really good with Excel or, using tables or pivot tables or whatever in Excel. Like, that is not my expertise. And sometimes I had these projects to work on my corporate jobs, and I would anonymize the content, right? And then, so there wasn't like any proprietary confidential information there. I was not sending trade secrets to the Philippines, but I would sometimes outsource this stuff to some of these virtual assistants I had in other parts of the world. And I might pay them, $5 or $10 literally for this project. And same idea, I would email it to them and say, hey, can you get this back to me? And, by the end of your workday. And then I would wake up and I would have it already done with nice, pretty graphs and colors in my inbox. And I just had to tweak it just a tad. So instead of spending hours and hours and mental energy and being drained about something I wasn't good at, I paid somebody else on the other side of the world to do it. And then I had time, effort, and energy to think more about my escape plan, my Independence Day, my side hustle, whatever it was, right? So you can use these things throughout to help you free up your time, free up your energy, do the things you need to do. But there's two things. One, you have to make it a priority, and you just have to stay focused on it and disciplined enough to do something every day. And two, you got to get around a group of people, probably multiple groups of people. Like, create your own little Venn diagram. I put you in the middle. And then, like, if you need some help with copywriting or sending emails or building funnels or whatever. So for me, like, I have a lot of friends and contacts in the ClickFunnels community and the Kajabi community. And I met some people through there, like Jim Edwards, who's a really good copywriter. So, like, if you think about these Venn diagrams with me in the middle, Jim overlaps a lot with the ClickFunnels community, not so much with the Kajabi community, but I've come to know him and I'm friends with him. And then through a John Maxwell thing that I did, he's in that community now too. So you do all these little circles and you can see, like, you create your own little Venn diagram of support and communities, and you see what these people are doing and you get some ideas and you model some of the ideas. You don't copy them, but you see what they're doing and you go, oh, okay, I can do something similar like that. That saves you so much time. Instead of having to think about it from scratch, you see what somebody in one community is doing. So for me, I just gave you a couple communities, John Maxwell, Leadership, Kajabi, ClickFunnels, whatever. I might see somebody do something in each one of those communities, and then I piece it all together and I go, oh, what if I did something that had a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and I sprinkled some of this from over there and like created that. That would be really awesome, right? And then put my own perspective and expertise into it. Like, that would be unique. That would be really cool. And that's actually a way to create some really unique stuff in the marketplace, right? So you're just taking some ideas and concepts and modeling, again, not copying, not taking someone's intellectual property, but just looking at how somebody delivers something, maybe looking at how somebody creates some content. And then instead of you having to like do all that from scratch, you just go, okay, cool. I'm going to take these concepts and put my own content in that kind of format and deliver it out to the world. And then again, using Jasper or your virtual assistant in the Philippines or whatever, you start getting that stuff out there. This is all while you still have a full-time job. So you're starting to build the foundation. You're getting it going. And listen, this day and age, if anybody at your work challenges you on it, you're like, yeah, whatever, I'm working on my side hustle, my spare time. I was very honest towards the tail end of my corporate time where I just flat out told people, like, I'm not going to do this job forever. I'm not staying here till retirement. I know that. And so I'm working on this thing on the side. I'm going to be the best employee ever, and I'm going to help our whole team win awards and all this stuff. And one of my favorite manager of all time, the best manager I ever had, Tiffany Elias. I think it's the second time I've name dropped her in this podcast. I just flat out said that to her one time when I was in pharmaceutical sales, and she's like, okay. She's like, you just do your job, like stay out of trouble, stay off the radar, hit your numbers, exceed your numbers actually, win some awards, do some stuff. And she said, I will support you however I can in that. So then she gave me some stretch projects and some things to work on internally that she knew were going to help build my skill sets. They were complementary to what I eventually wanted to do. So I said, like, I need to get better at speaking in front of people, speaking on stages, doing all of these things. And so she also helped me get some stretch things, where one time I did a presentation for like 200 people on how to be more efficient, effective, and productivity and things like that. And I taught it in front of this whole group. And then, so I got the experience of doing it, but then I could put like on my resume and LinkedIn and tell people like, yeah, I was invited to speak to 200 pharmaceutical, leading, super successful, award-winning pharmaceutical professionals in the New York City area to talk about this, that, and whatever, right? People are like, oh, that's really good for social proof. But those things wouldn't have happened if I didn't prioritize my escape plan, my Independence Day. And if I wasn't just very open and honest with the people around me. Now, I get it. You might not be able to do that with your manager. You might not have that kind of relationship. You might be afraid they're going to fire you. But I would argue that in today's day and age, I'm recording this podcast in the summer of 2022, at least this episode anyway. Like right now, employees are pretty much in the driver's seat. So like if anybody gave me any pushback on that, I'd be like, listen, am I a good employee? Am I delivering on what I'm supposed to be delivering? Then leave me the heck alone. Like I'm doing this on my own time. Again, don't do any of this stuff on your company computer. Don't do any of this stuff when you're supposed to be on a Zoom call from home with your company. Do all the things you're supposed to do as a good employee. But these strategies should help you just when you have moments of time, when you can think about these things, or on your break, or during lunch, or on your commute in and your commute out of work. You can be prioritizing this stuff so then you can execute on it much better when you've dedicated the time when you get home to do it. Okay. This is probably one of the longest episodes I've done in a while, but I think it's important. And the reason why you could probably hear it in my voice. The reason why I'm so adamant about this is because this is the thing that helped me. This book, The 4-Hour Workweek, it gives you the strategies, it gives you the ideas, it helps you think about how you might be able to outsource or automate or realistically even eliminate, right? A lot of people don't think about this stuff, but there's probably stuff you're doing in your daily activities, both personally and for business, like you just don't even need to do. How can you stop doing some of that stuff? And how can you free up some more time to then do the things that are actually important? So many people are worried about being efficient and effective, but the things that they're doing don't even matter. So if you can do a little analysis on like, these things don't even matter. Why am I worried about doing them efficiently and effectively? Like, what are the things that really matter? What if I did more of them? That would make me a better employee. But then with that same lens, with that same mindset, you apply it to your side hustle, your escape plan, your Independence Day. And you say, hey, what if I did the same thing over here for me? Because then you're starting to think like a business owner. That's the biggest thing here that I could tie this whole conversation up with a bow with this. The biggest challenge for many people, and probably you if you're listening to this, is you have to get in a business owner mindset. And when you prioritize your business that you're launching, your successful business that you will launch, when that becomes a priority for you and you start thinking like a business owner 24/7, even when you're an employee, but you take a business owner lens and you look at what you're doing, it fundamentally changes how you operate. It changes just about everything. So the hardest switch, I think, for most people is getting that mindset shift between those two things. I'm telling you, once you start thinking about everything as an employer, you're like, okay, yeah, this asset, this software, this Jasper copywriting artificial intelligence thing might cost me some money, but it's an investment I'm willing to make because it will free up X amount of time, or it will allow me to bring my product to the marketplace much faster, which means I could speed up my Independence Day. Yeah, this software that I'm going to put my course or my membership on, Kajabi, it's best in class and it has all these things in it. It costs some money, but I'm willing to make that investment because I know when I put my stuff on there and I put it out there to the world, then people can buy my stuff 24/7, even when I'm working my full-time job. And then my side hustle continues to grow. So that's an investment I'm willing to make. Like, that's the thing. You have to be willing to invest in your business, both effort and energy and also money. Right? It's going to take some money to make this happen. It's not going to be free. There are plenty of free tools out there and freemium things, but at some point you're going to have to think about investing some money in some tools to really make these things happen. And once you get all of this stuff aligned, once you get all these mindsets aligned, once you go through the 4-Hour Work Week, actually read that book, start executing on these things, I know without a shadow of a doubt, because it's helped me and literally thousands of people that I've coached and talked about these strategies to, I know that when you put this stuff into play, it will help you execute on your own Independence Day, which I know without a shadow of a doubt will bring you a higher quality of life and will allow you to unleash your awesome on the world. See you.
Thanks for listening to Unleash the Awesome. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please share us on your favorite social media platforms using #UnleashAwesome.